everybody, Old School NYC Gamer here once again at Classic Gaming Expo 2014, and I have a very, very special guest here today, Mr. Keith Robinson from Intellivision. How are you, sir?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, of course, as a lot of you do not know, it was a very special weekend, and would you like to talk more about it, Mr. Robinson?
Well, the main thing is we were introducing our world premiere of the Intellivision Flashback, which this is not quite what the box looks like because we have a sleeve put around it this weekend so we get people autographing it. But, in fact, maybe I should actually show you what the real thing looks like.
Let's see.
That's what you actually find in stores. It will be in stores October 1st and
We'll be
thereafter.
pretty much, I believe, 3 weeks from today. So, yeah.
So this is our flashback unit. It looks just like the old Intellivision, except it's a little bit smaller. So go ahead and this one is sealed up.
So at least, some collectors, wait, don't open it, it's sealed, it's sealed. But yeah.
We'll reseal it. Just want to show you, it looks like the old Intellivision, except it's much smaller. But the hand controllers look and feel just like the original hand controllers. So when you're playing these games,
it's pretty accurate, to exactly how it was back in 1979.
Oh yeah, it's got the little membrane inside, everything is the same. Which is kind of what the funny thing is, as we've been making various emulation, various packages since 1998, and half the people who get it say, gee, can we actually get the real controllers again so we can really play it the way it was? And then have people say, boy, I really like this. They don't have those stupid controllers that I hated on the original one. So it's like, well, this one, you've got the original controllers again. So I hope you like them because they are accurate, and this is the closest thing you'll ever get to playing an actual Intellivision without going on eBay and buying Intellivision and spending thousands of dollars for the 60 games that are included in it.
Exactly. There's quite a few rare titles in this list. I mean, Skating Mud Buggies.
Yeah, it's not like the Mattel titles, the titles from INTV Corporation, which took over the rights after Mattel got out of the business. So you have the games like Spiker Super Pro Volleyball, Stadium Mud Buggies, some of the games toward the end, which now on eBay costs hundreds or even thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah, and some of my friends actually own a few of those cards actually.
Well, I'm sorry for them that they paid so much when they could have gotten this thing for
exactly
40, 50 bucks.
Well, to each their own,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so Keith, besides plugging the flashback, what always brings you to CG like every couple of years?
So the main thing is just meeting people, just meeting and telling the stories. I always tell people, like at an interview like this, it's like, okay, when you've got enough tape, turn off the lights and leave, because I'll still be here talking about it. I love talking about this stuff, and I love meeting people who played the Intellivision games and what it meant to them. We get stories all the time. People email me, "Hey, the first time I ever even saw a computer was the Intellivision. Now I work at JPL."
Yeah, I mean,
Don't blame me for your job.
My first interaction with the Intellivision was 5 years old. I was at a cousin's friend's house, and he had poker and blackjack. And of course, 5-year-olds do not know how to play poker and blackjack.
Right.
So of course, the infamous sound of So I pretty much rage quit before I could even start the game. But then eventually, he busted out. I believe it was Astro Smash, and that was majorly addictive. I was like, wait, this is like. No, it's not Space Invaders, it's Astro. And of course, being 5 years old, you don't really superly comprehend all this.
Right.
But it was like, you just hit this button, you just go back and forth. And it was majorly addictive. I mean, for a good couple of years, I would always go to his house screaming that I wanted to play Astro Smash, like every single time.
Well, the nice thing about the collection of games, the Intellivision at the time, was we wanted to do a complete a variety of games. We had simple games like that, like Astro Smash, which a 5-year-old can play and blow things up. And then you have the games like the Dungeons and Dragons games, which were much more complex role-playing games, which we can no longer use the trademark Dungeons and Dragons.
Due to licensing.
Right, but the original games are on here. Crown of Kings and Minotaur are games that people would be familiar with from back then under the other titles. But the sports titles, the ones that Mattel originally did, they were just great and everybody loved them, but you required 2 players. You had to find a friend who knew how to play them. The games we've included on here are the ones that INTV Corporation did later that used the same mechanics as the original game, the same graphics and everything, but then used a computer opponent in there. So now you can play them one player.
Oh, so basically, so some of the games you actually do have an AI.
Oh, yes. Yes, many of them do. We tried as much as possible. That was actually one of the, at Mattel, in 1982, I think that's when they came up with the policy that every game had to have a one-player mode. And then INTV Corporation kept that going through 1989 when the last games were released. So even if you've got a two-player type of game, there will be a computer opponent with AI that you can fight against.
So I mean, like with your influence within the company, I believe it was when you started. Was which year was that when you started?
1981.
Up until
1984, which is when Mattel Electronics closed down. And then 1986, I started working, or 85 I think it was, I started doing stuff for INTV Corporation in terms of designing their packaging and writing the instructions and all that. And I stayed there through 1990, or 1989 I believe was the last catalog they produced. For Christmas of 1989.
I mean, like I said, it's weird because, like I said, from growing up with Atari and even Nintendo, Intellivision was that one system. Even though I saw tons of ads for it, in a way, for me, honestly, I was never into it at first, and I'll be honest. But of course, you have to try it. Like, you can't hate on a thing or a console until you try it.
Right.
Of course, like I said the whole thing when Astro Smash. That was like my first taste of it, but it was only up until in my teens that I got to experience it again. And then, when they brought out like B-17 Bomber, I'm trying to remember one other game. Actually, I have to look at it. So I'm looking for the cheat sheet on this one. Even Space Battle. And, like I said, there's certain games that appeal to me, like not every game. Like at first I would think Snafu, because of course it's just like a very early version of Snake. I was like, I couldn't really deal with it at first, but like I said, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time to get into a game, even if it's simplistic as that.
Right. Well, the thing is always with arcade, with console home games, is that there's always something new coming along. There's always some new technology or whatever. But it really is the games that drive the sales. I mean, they've had some systems come out. The Dreamcast, for example, Sega Dreamcast, which was a very nice machine, but they never came out with a game that people wanted to play the game enough to buy this new machine. And the thing about the Intellivision was originally the sports games really what drove it. And then as George Plimpton started talking, comparing the graphics, and there was more and more games that people wanted to play on this system. So even though when they first came out with the system, it was like, well, gee, why do we want this? The Atari's is fine. They say, well, here's what Atari baseball looks like. Here's what Intellivision baseball looks like.
And I'll be honest, I was very intrigued by it. But of course, like I said, when certain people saw the console at first, it was the gamepad, because that threw them off. Not necessarily the dial, but the number pad kind of threw them off at first. Like, wait a minute, what am I supposed to do? I just want to just go left and right, up and down, and hit one button or two. Right. But like I said, to me, it seemed like more of a challenging console compared to an Atari or
Well, the funny thing is that people say, oh, this dial, at the time, but now, that's what most controllers have, is they have this D-pad where you press up, down, left, right, and that's all this is press up, down, left, right. It's got 16 directions on it, and you just press, and that's the direction you go. Even the number pad, which of course we had the overlays that you slid down so you could help you play the game, was usually used for setting up things. And then you had the side buttons, or like the button on a joystick. So you had essentially 3 action buttons, and then the directional disc. And the other buttons kind of used for setting up, initiating the game.
Okay, so actually, I remember from being at the panel, there was one story. I mean, I don't know if you want to maybe kind of compress it. Something to do with ducks and a golf club.
Well, it just really kind of showed. I like telling the story because it really shows, at the time, the importance of the camaraderie and the spirit and the morale in the place. I was a manager at the time, and in some mornings, myself and a couple of people who worked for me, we would go play golf. We'd come back, but down the street from where our programming building was, there was a building that was the Mattel outlet store. And you go down there, and employees could buy things, discount price. And one day, Steve Ettinger, who worked for me, we went down there, and they had a big box, and it was filled with these little rubber ducks. And we said, how much are the rubber ducks? They're 5 cents each. Okay, we'll take the box. And we take the whole box. We figure there's got to be some gag we can do with a box of 100
And you didn't even think at first, like, why are these guys buying 100 ducks?
No, we weren't there all the time. They didn't, programmers then, whatever. So we come back to these ducks. We're like hiding them in people's cubicles. They open up a file cabinet. Well, there's a duck in there. And anyway, we're not exactly sure who first started it, whether it was Steve or me or Joe, who was working for me also. But the way our building was laid out was a long central corridor and then cubicles on each side. And on the second floor of this building. And at the very end of this long hallway was then a stairwell going down. So there was a water cooler there. We took out some cups, set the cups down as tees and put the ducks on top, and took those golf clubs, we've been golfing that morning, and started driving down this thing toward that stairwell. And so, and it wasn't like, it was like, well, let's use the pitching wedge or something like that. No, let's use the driver, and bam! And so these things were going and flying and hitting the rafters and bouncing off the rafters and falling down into people's cubicles. So, you know, you'd have somebody who's working, all of a sudden this duck falls on, and they go, hey, what the heck, what's going on here? And so as we were standing there, it's like prairie dogs. They were like popping up over these cubicles, they were seeing what was going on. Anyway, so then finally, one of us hit a great shot, went right down that staircase. And as it was bouncing down the staircase, the vice president of application software of the Intellivision programmers came up the staircase, and he's looking behind like, oh. And he looks up and he sees the three of us standing there with these golf clubs, and immediately puts together what's going on. And we just freeze. We go, uh-oh. Uh-oh. And he came over just this long walk. We just had to stand there. He got closer and closer and closer. As he got to us, he took the golf clubs and went, no, no, no. And he kept walking down the corridor back to where his office was. So he had a real office, not a cubicle, and he got in there and he slammed the door. And so now Joe, who's working for me, he goes, oh no, I'm going to get fired. That's so going to be over. And Joe, let me go talk to Gabriel. I'll settle things down. I'm the boss. You'll be fine. So I walked down to his office and come in and opened the door and said, Gabriel, I just want to apologize. Just, trying to, keep the spirit light. He said, you do what you have to do. I'll do what I have to do. It was just a clear thing there. He's the boss. He's the whole system. But he appreciated that I was doing something to help morale there, because you got to keep the spirits up of the programmers. At that particular time, which was late 1983, the crash had started and people were starting to worry about the jobs. Like Joe's going, because you start seeing the writing on the wall here that the industry is in real trouble. So anything we could do at that time to kind of keep morale light, keep it going, everything was appreciated by the bosses, although they couldn't quite condone playing golf in the main corridor of the building.
With rubber duckies.
Yeah. So.
But mentioning the crash, and just there's always the hypothetical what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
If Warner did not just go overboard and just let everybody do a game,
Mm-hmm.
would you? And this is just like the most random question. Would you have seen Nintendo be as big, if not even, or just not as big as it is now, if the crash didn't happen?
Well, the crash was inevitable, simply because then people wanted to play games and everybody wanted to get into it. And in fact, in 1983, when the crash occurred, the sales of video games went up. It was the supply that went up way higher than the demand. It was a very simple thing. It had to crash. Now, where Nintendo was smart, they came along and actually put in like a lock and key system so that you couldn't make a game for Nintendo.
I believe it's 3 games a year or something like that.
Well, there's actually a chip inside of every single Nintendo cartridge that talks to a chip inside every single console to make sure that okay, all right, this one was legitimate. And the same type of principle is now used for the Sony on the PlayStations and Microsoft on the Xbox. You have to go to them to manufacture, so you can be a third-party manufacturer. But in those days, if a third-party manufacturer made a game, if Activision made a game that was a hit, Pitfall or something, for Atari or for Intellivision, Atari and Intellivision, who's making the hardware, gets nothing. And at that time in 1983, Intellivision, for example, was going way overboard with the amount of hardware they were building. They had the original Intellivision, they came out with the Intellivision 2, they were developing Intellivision 3, Intellivision 4, they had the IntelliVoice unit, they had the entertainment computer system, they had the Aquarius computer. There was just way too much development, and not enough software was being sold because the glut of software that was out there was too much of it. So had there been this thought, oh, hey, we can use this lock and key system and make it so that you had that come about, or even had Mattel kind of weathered it out, Mattel was a big enough company, they probably could have, then I think that Mattel now would be one of the major players in the marketplace still.
Yeah, it's always us what ifs.
Yeah, so it's just we kind of turned away. The people kept saying, oh, did you ever think it was going to be the way it is now? I said, yeah, we were talking about that back then, extrapolating that games would become really motion picture quality and that you'd be very immersive in all this. But we just thought it would have happened sooner. We lost 10 years because of the crash of '83.
Exactly. I mean, just because, like I said, even though when it happened here in America, it never happened anywhere else. Everywhere was specifically with computers, like with Commodore, in England with the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, Acorn Electron, they just kept going up. And it was like, I mean, at least and I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Crane brought up, it was like, we all knew that it was computers that were there.
Right. And so the computers, you can still see the effect, because in 1983 we had very much arcade-style games on the consoles. But after the crash, people who still wanted to play the games had to turn to computers, because consoles had been all gone out of business. And because of computers, there were certain things a computer could do. You could save a game, you could put more text in a game, you could do more elaborate games that could take you hours or even days to play. Those features, then when consoles came back, people were used to those features, and those features became part of the video gaming experience. So the crash introduced all the computer features that we now have in all the games.
So yeah, so I mean, just to kind of wrap this up here, so it's been so long, and even within the last 10 years, the brand itself has actually had its staying power and is actually being relevant, especially in 2014. I mean, after this, what else the future plans for Intellivision? What would you really like to see within the next 5 years?
Well, the type of games, as I said, as we moved into after the crash, a lot of the computer features came in, but we lost some of the fun arcade, quick, addictive. A game doesn't end; it just like you keep playing it and then you reset and play it again. That kind of got lost. So the games now that we are doing on systems like this, they are the original games. They're emulated perfectly. They're just, you're playing the game as it originally was. But I do believe in the future there are more games that can be done that are in the style that have the kind of philosophical feeling of the fast, addictive game that you can play under the Intellivision brand. So we can still follow, it doesn't have to follow the blockiness, it doesn't have to follow the graphics, it doesn't have to follow the 1980s look, but I think there's something kind of inherent in that style of game that still people would find fun today. That's the thing is, there's a certain nostalgia factor to this, and we certainly capitalize on the nostalgia. Hey, remember when you were 6 playing under the Christmas tree? Here's those games again. But the thing is, people come, they come for the nostalgia, they stay for the fun gameplay, because they find these games are still fun to play. Astro Smash, you're talking about Astro Smash being 5 years old. Have you played Astro Smash lately? It is still fun today to play. I like playing Astro Smash all the time.
I mean, I played it on my iPhone recently, and I was like, wow, like it's still, I mean, it's not exactly, touch controls are a little weird, but the premise and gameplay is still there.
Yeah, so the coming up with new games, that's another thing, is the Astro Smash, like I say, the touch controls are kind of weird there. That's why you need to play it on something like this, where there really are the original feeling graphics. But these new platforms that have the touch, the different things like that, we should be able to come up with new games that take advantage of that feel very natural playing them on that, but that are fast, addictive, fun games like you had in the 1980s with these games.
All right, so like I said, Mr. Robinson, thank you so much for this video.
You bet, thanks.
And of course, the Flashback will be coming out on October
1st.
Okay, and where specifically, mainly, would these be available?
Oh, they should be any place where memories are sold. They'll have it at Walgreens, there's going to be Sam's Club, there's going to be
Target?
Target, I'm not sure about Target right now. Last I heard they were still talking to Target, but you never know until they actually place the order.
Exactly.
But I know our people are out there. This is nice that we have a company, we have the IAT Games behind us that has worldwide distribution, and they have been talking to every distributor. So our hope is that on October 1st, you're going to be able to go just about anywhere and say, hey, give me one of those. Toys R Us, of course.
Yes.
There's just, I think you'll find it any place where you would actually have like a little electronics department and games being sold, that's where you'll find it.
All right, everybody, so you heard the man, October 1st, it comes out, go get it. So as I said, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down at the bottom. And, I will leave all the information for this console and for the Intellivision website also at the bottom. And, always, as always, feel free to check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and DailyMotion. And that's about it. Have a good one, everybody, and take care. Cheers.